Going to try and keep this short today because my internet connection is absolutely rubbish. So the chances of this uploading during the day are almost nil. But we'll go there anyway. So today I was going to talk to you about an article I just read today on addictions. And the interesting thing about the article is they did a bunch of studies and they discovered that those addictive substances are not addictive in themselves. That was the gist of it. They tested on rats like they always do and all this sort of stuff. But what they found was the root of addiction is actually what the substance is giving you, not what is in the substance itself. What do I mean by that? Well, when somebody comes to see me with an addiction, there is always a reason that you started the addiction. Whether that addiction is smoking, drinking, drugs, gambling, food, or something else that I haven't thought about, the end of the day, we get addicted to stuff because we need it to serve a purpose. And a lot of people say they have addictive natures, and that might be true, who am I to know? But that only applies once you've got addicted to something in the first place. And I think a lot of people who think they've got addictive natures actually are the sort of people who need something to help them cope with whatever. And there's two purposes a substance gives you, and I am including food in this, because it is an addiction. It just unfortunately is the only addiction that you can't get over by abstaining from. So, two purposes of an addiction. First reason that you turn to a substance is because it gives you a feeling or an emotion or a state that you cannot have the rest of the time. So, for example, you might start drinking because when you are drunk or when you've had enough alcohol, you feel confident enough to socialise and be in parties and do that sort of stuff. And the person you are without the alcohol cannot cope with that. So the alcohol serves a purpose, which is to give you a good feeling. The second reason that people get addicted to stuff is because it allows them to escape from something. So while they are doing their addiction, taking the substance, engaged in their addiction, they don't have to think about all the stuff that's in the head on the outside of that. So if you're taking drugs, it can dampen out all the thoughts that can be really hard to cope with. And when you think of it in that context, why on earth would you give up something when it works so well for you? Why on earth would you stop drinking if it gives you confidence? Why on earth would you stop eating if when you eat it's the only time that you're in a safe place where you can just not worry about anything for that moment in time? Why would you stop taking drugs if the thoughts that you have to deal with on the outside of taking a substance are actually so painful for you that they're difficult to cope with? So what I do when I work with somebody who's got any sort of addiction is I get rid of the reason they need the addiction in the first place. Instead of helping them cope through multiple steps or cognitive processes or anything like that, I help them find out why they aren't confident without the alcohol. What is it that makes them feel not good enough? If it's painful thoughts, we get rid of the reason for the painful thoughts. We sort that out. We sort out the thing that causes the need for the substance. And then when they turn to that substance, the hardest thing for my clients to deal with is that it does nothing for them. That sounds like a weird thing to say, right? But imagine if you, whenever you're stressed, you eat. Imagine if you eat chocolate or whatever, crisps, quite often it's crisps for people. If you eat when you're stressed, now I take it away so that eating when you're stressed doesn't work at all. Does that stop you getting stressed? Not always. There's lots of things that can make you stressed. But now, when you turn to food, it gives you nothing, and that can be really annoying. So I have a specialised download, an MP3 file of me waffling on like this, so that when you come and see me for these things, not only do I help you get over the problem that leads to the addiction in the first place, but I provide something you can listen to daily that gives you the support to cope with what your life is like without that substance in it, without that substance actually working for you whatsoever. So you're not left high and dry, you're not left feeling vulnerable, you can carry on and you can learn to cope. And if you find then that things happen that you're not used to, you get more emotional, you get more angry, that's okay, because that's just another thing, right? And we just deal with that. And we keep dealing with the stuff until you're free to be whoever you want to be without needing anything to support you to do it. And it was interesting because that article basically says the same thing. The substance in itself is not the problem. It's why we turn to it that we have a problem. Okay, so that's about long enough.